the middle finger manifested in human form. And I think that the individuals who support him, they might support him for other reasons as well. But I do think that one of the dominant reasons is that it's giving a middle finger to our political establishment, to our institutions. And a lot of Americans feel like those institutions and the political establishment has let them down, whether we're talking about the Democratic establishment or the Republican establishment.
Last weekend, there was this very interesting bit from the Bill Maher show, or Real Time with Bill Maher, whichever one you might want to call it, where an MSNBC contributor decided to come out and basically tell everybody that the real reason why it was that the left was losing was because they did not have a quote-unquote online apparatus. Now, I said quote unquote, and you're probably thinking to yourself, if you saw the segment, that's not exactly what he said, but that was what he was heavily alluding to. Let me play some of that for you guys.
I'd like to steal a line from Dave Chappelle, who said at some point how he doesn't know very much about what goes on Twitter because he doesn't go on Twitter because Twitter is not a real place. That's sort of how I feel about Twitter. And Twitter, not only is Twitter not a real place, but it's become a toxic cesspool filled with nothing, not about right, it's not about conservative, it's just filled with misinformation, disinformation, and conspiracy theories. So I would rather not have the left replicate that if that's what's required. I think the deeper question that the question's getting at is that if you look at the data in this election, the amount of reach of all of these alternative, I'm talking about the whole podcast space mostly, but also social media, the interviews that Trump did, not starting with Rogan, but Theo Vaughn and all of these other things he did, incredible reach compared to old mainstream media, right? Where, the number of people that Kamala Harris reached by going and talk to Brett Baer is a tiny fraction of, if you look up the...
And of course, the headers are over the video. Now, guys, I want you to know something right now. I am doing this video on Wednesday for the purpose of releasing it on Saturday. The reason why is, of course, if you already know, there's a lot of content that's going to be made over the next couple of days. So I want to go ahead and get this video out and ensure that it's out so that way you guys can see exactly where we're going with this. But chances are you've probably already come across David Pakman losing his mind because he's losing subscribers, or chances are you probably came across Kyle Kulinski's ridiculous takes on the election. Let me play some of that for you.
Pollsters were the most correct in 2020. But what they don't tell you is they were the most incorrect in 2022, which is more recent, when everybody and their grandma said there was going to be a massive red wave, a historic red wave. All those pollsters said, the biggest red wave you've ever seen. And it wasn't. It was barely a red trickle. Democrats massively overperformed. Okay, so if you have one cottage industry of like 10 different pollsters that are right-wing hack pollsters who are lying, and then the reputable pollsters are just punting and calling it 50-50, it's giving you a misleading picture of a super close race, or if anything, Trump is slightly up. When all of the real data we have, if anything, is showing the opposite.
Oh, wait, that right there was an allusion to his prediction. Also, to go on top of that, Cenk Uygur, he had his prediction as well. And these predictions that Kamala Harris was going to win the election with like 357 electoral college votes did not make any sense. I did do a couple of videos on this. Don't worry, they will be linked in the description box. They'll be placed in the end cards. But this video right here is about what happens to the online left going forward. Now, speaking of Pakman, there was a certain set of comments that were made on the Timcast IRL right after the election with Michael Knowles. Let me play some of that for you guys.
It's not a good idea.
This is such retconning. Yes. I was on TV with Cenk Uygur. We were on Piers Morgan's show. And this was right after they picked Tim Walz. And I said, I think Tim Walz is a bad pick because he's an extreme leftist who tried to turn Minnesota into the windowless white van of the Midwest. Said, hey, trans kids, come on over here. I mean, he's a total wacko. And Cenk said, no, Michael, this was a great pick, and you'll see, you'll be crying on election day. It was smart of her to pick. So he agreed with my characterization that Walz was a leftist, and I would go further and say Kamala, in as much as she has any beliefs, is a radical leftist who wanted to end fracking and open borders and all the rest. So now you're getting this retconning from guys like Pakman saying, if only we'd picked a progressive, if only the progressives had turned out. Cenk said the same thing. If only we had a populist. Hey guys, You previously said you did that. Yeah. That didn't work. Well, so what are you going to do now?
The tweet here from David Pakman is that he lies to people. Well, okay, I'll be nicer. He's wrong so often. He was incredibly wrong now, and he's losing subscribers over it. And what we're hearing is that many of these prominent left and liberal channels are bleeding subscribers. I just want to say this. Kyle Kulinski, I used to think he was a nice guy. He's kind of gone off the deep end on X. When he posted a picture from an airplane looking at farms and then said, I wonder why it looks this way, he got dragged mercilessly for not knowing what a farm was. And I said, hey, look, he's an urban liberal.
I remember when Kyle got dragged for that. It was absolutely insane. But this is the online left. These are urban liberals who don't live in reality. These are urban liberals who have never seen anything beyond the city or their suburb. You can include Pacman in that too. Jink, I'll at least give credit for, well, there's a couple of things in Jink's past, which I'll talk about in the video that I have on the humiliation ritual of Jink Younger. But yeah, Kyle, Dave, most of these urban liberals, they've never seen farms. They've never been around people outside their own circle. So this is kind of sort of, kind of what to expect out of these people, but let's continue. And after everything you heard just then, you had a lot of prominent liberals online say that basically the Democratic Party needed to reform itself by becoming more Democrat. You ever ask a socialist why it was that socialism didn't work? You ever ask a communist why communism didn't work? They always say the same thing. It wasn't implemented the correct way. So basically the answer to socialism's failure is more socialism. Same thing with communism. I just figured I'd point that out before we go any further. There was also this little bit that I'm about to play for you guys from Hassan Piker that was played roughly a couple of weeks before the election. And of course, there was also a response from Romanian VTV, a very good channel I advise you guys go check out, where he kind of answered back to this. And of course, it was basically what it was that people were feeling about the current left, especially given the fact that, well, let me play Hassan's bit first, and then I'll play V's bit.
A massive amount of right-wing radicalization that has been occurring, especially in younger male spaces. Everything is completely dominated by right-wing politics. If you're a dude under the age of 30 and you have any hobbies whatsoever, whether it's playing video games, whether it's working out, whether it's, I don't know, listening to like a history podcast or whatever, every single facet of that is just completely dominated by center-right to, I wouldn't say far-right in the same way that it was back in like the 2016 era at the end of like Obama's administration.
Yes. The Democratic Party did way worse with young voters, especially young men. Why is that? Well, let me play the other half.
I wouldn't say far right in the same way that it was back.
So we're going to get to what he means by far right, but it makes sense. I mean, first of all, left-wing people are completely delusional and detached from reality to the point where they can't even define what a woman is, and they require terms of service and censorship in order to function. I know this is difficult to believe, but like less than a decade ago, most of the internet was uncensored. Like you would join a group about video games or something like that, and they had like a couple of rules about don't disrespect people, don't disrespect the moderators, don't impersonate people, don't scam. But like other than that, you could talk about anything you wanted. And now almost every single left-wing space, like for instance Reddit or Reset Era or places that are dominated by left-wing people, require moderation, and usually like extremely heavy moderation, to the point where if you say the wrong pronouns or if you have like a wrong political opinion, they will ban your ass.
There was also some stuff that V said about the war on men. I'll link the full video in the description box for you guys, but the war on men didn't exactly help the left's cause out either. And they probably should have been a little bit more open to it. But then again, though, when you're constantly attacking them, of course, men are going to look at this and say, nah, I don't want to be around that. Country shifted 5 to 7 points to the right. Kamala Harris was such a weak candidate that the state of New Jersey almost flipped to Donald Trump. Virginia, which had went to Biden by 10, only went to her by about 4. It was actually close all the way down to the wire to the final votes in that state. Also, the state of Illinois, a very, very blue stronghold, also found a way to be much, much closer. Trump actually came within single digits. Also, to go on top of that, Minnesota, another very blue stronghold, got very close, as well as the state of New Mexico. And a lot of people were thinking that maybe it was just because Kamala Harris was just an extremely weak candidate. I actually think it's pretty much what V said. People are sick and tired of the left. The biggest reason why Joe Biden won in 2020 is because people, quite frankly, were voting against COVID. A lot of left-wingers, by the way, immediately went to the whole, well, where did all these voters go? Where did these 15 million extra voters go? Well, 2/3 of that total decided to stay home and not vote. Do you wonder why? Well, it's because there was no pandemic, and people also saw the media run all kinds of craziness for the last 4 years, on top of the craziness of the previous 4 years, on top of the craziness of the previous 4 years before that. Yeah, and you got to ask yourself a question. Maybe people just simply got sick and tired of the left. They also got sick and tired of the bogus predictions. They got tired of all the attitudes, the snarkiness, the smugness. They got tired of all of that. And of course, the left was absolutely rejected. Parker's numbers have even taken a hit too. Talked about that earlier this year. Yeah, normally it's the men that are first to go, but then after that, the women eventually, they eventually begin to follow, because after a while, even the liberal women begin to start marrying guys who are a little bit more moderate and conservative. That's the truth about women. They become more conservative over time, where men, they have a built-in sense of conservatism already that it gets unlocked, normally during college or normally once they get to the work world. But that's another conversation altogether. But let's get back on point. The title of this video is, What Happens to the Online Left Now? Well, I think back to a conversation that was had on an episode of The Young Turks that I even responded to on this channel, which, of course, involved a take from Anna Kasparian, where she kind of sort of had a bit of a meltdown after Kamala Harris had pretty much suggested that she was going to be bringing Liz Cheney to her campaign events with her. Let me play some of that for you guys.
Cozying up with neocons like Dick Cheney works out for her and gets her across the finish line. I need Democratic voters to please just explain to me, why is it that you guys really want the Democrat to win if the Democrat is willing to open her administration up to neocons who do not possess the same values as us, right? If the Democratic Party becomes the new party of neocons, why do we care so much about getting the Democrat elected?
No, they have one.
I just need to understand. I need to understand, because guys, okay, I don't care about the party's label. I care about what the party is going to do to make our lives better. And if the signaling right now is we're going to be like the Bush era Republicans, what is the point?
Yeah, so look, there is no point left to these corporate Democrats. The only point is survival. So you know what I think. I think Trump is a deranged wannabe dictator. So, and he proves it every day. Just played you the clip of him saying the military should take care of the enemy from within.
Speaking of that, you see someone like Tulsi Gabbard, whom, by the way, a lot of MAGA fans are suddenly wanting to be Secretary of Defense. And of course, Trump has already named as Secretary of Defense. Chances are you probably already saw my video on that. Like I said, this video right here is being released on Saturday, but that video about the Secretary of Defense position was released on Thursday. My videos on Trump's cabinet and his second term agenda would have been released before this video here. So don't worry if you guys want to see those, they will be in the description box. The point is this right here. The online left has really got nowhere else to go. But leave it to Jink to have a rant on election night on the Patriot Bet David podcast, which, by the way, will be followed up a little bit later because we got to talk about Jink's humiliation ritual. But here you go.
As things stand, I just came off the Young Turks show where I lit into the Democratic Party. Bunch of losers, corporate Democrats. I hate them. They've cost us election after election. They're corrupt. And they lost, it looks like, to a syphilitic clown, total moron, con man, Donald Trump. So if you lose to a buffoon like Donald Trump twice, what does that make you?
If Dame Pesos has made a video yet, I'll try to find it and link it in the description box if I can for you guys. But the fact of the matter is this right here. The online left has been delusional for years, and I think that they already got rejected. However, the question then becomes, well, what happens to them going forward now that they've been rejected? Well, simply put, they'll continue to get rejected over and over and over again. There are people out there suggesting that the Democratic Party nominate Destiny to be the nominee in 2028. Phil Labonte had some words about Destiny recently that I thought pretty much encapsulated how most normies would feel about Destiny. The ones who haven't been exposed to his channel yet, the ones who watch regular mainstream media, Let me roll this.
Is so stupid because that's what the Democrats are now. There are no more moderate Democrats. He's not a moderate Democrat. He's an idiot. And if you look at like how many Democrats that were moderate Democrats that consider themselves moderate Democrats, they've all left the Democrat Party because the Democrats have doubled down on racism. They've doubled down on identity politics. They've doubled down on all the things that normal Americans are rejecting. You've got the major names in the Democrat Party now are all like, they're all pro-Hamas and they're anti-Israel. Like you see the Squad, they're the ones that dictate the sentiment.
Oh, but AOC is going more Israel, isn't she?
Well, I don't know if AOC
She's
is.
falling in line.
She might be. I could be wrong about
and then
AOC.
two of the Squad members got the boot.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing. But that sentiment is the majority sentiment. You got people like Destiny doesn't get to walk out here and act like that he's not like in the same boat as Hassan Piker. And Hassan is clearly anti-Israel, pro-Hamas. That's all of BreadTube is they've all got their start because of Destiny. He is the exact reason why the left is the way
about that. I think it was Ace 1918. I think I did a video in response to some of the things that he had said after the death of Corey Carpenter, the Trump assassination, the first attempt. I had said in that video, I kind of echoed exactly what Ace had said about Destiny, that if people thought that this right here is what the mindset of a moderate progressive was, I don't want to see what a full-blown progressive looks like. You had Vosh also during the election telling his audience that yeah, you had his audience basically saying, basically responding to him that, look, man, you lied. And of course, you've got the guy here in the B-roll footage, Roland Martin, who was demanding that Trump be covered much, much harder. And then you've also got Charlemagne the Fraud, who also went on CNN and demanded that Donald Trump be what? Covered much, much harder. They actually cover him as a fascist. They were already screaming Trump fascist enough to the point to where now the American people have looked at this and they've said, this is all the hell you've got. They're numb to it. Even those who maybe even somewhat left-leaning are saying, yeah, you guys have got to go. But as I said in my video about the Democratic Party being dead, they are married to the hip of these people. Regardless of how much they try to divorce these people from their party, they will always be around dragging them down. Now that they've been rejected, what happens to them? Well, this is what's going to happen. You're going to see their rhetoric get meaner and less caring. You're also going to see it get more and more hateful. After a while, the echo chamber will begin. And I mean, it will begin to get smaller. But that smaller echo chamber, what happens to it when it gets to the very, very end? Well, let me say this. There's this thing called the 5 stages of death. And I would love to explain that, but you guys probably already know it. Denial, anger, bargaining, eventually depression, and eventually after depression, there is also acceptance. I would say that 2016, when Trump won, I would say that was the denial phase. They spent the next 4 years basically denying Trump's existence while at the same time calling him an evil orange man, while at the same time trying to impeach him. And then, of course, they ended up making up for this by getting one of their guys elected that they could control. But still, though, the denial was covering up the reality. And, of course, they governed like they were angry. And I think that anger built up because while they were trying to govern like progressives, and, of course, the progressives will tell you that Joe Biden was not a progressive, which is exactly what I said back in 2020, but that he would cater to the progressives and be probably the weakest president we ever had, which, of course, you will see in history that he was, in fact, the weakest president that America ever had. But you would see the anger come out, and the anger would be with the American people that they did not accept it. And, of course, what did they do on election night? They got angry when they lost. So what happens next? Well, it's what I call the bargaining phase. You see, the far left, they're pissed off at the mainstream media. They're pissed off that the Democratic Party wants to move on from the crazies. They're pissed off that the Democratic Party wants to move on from the racial politics. They're pissed off that these people want to move away from free healthcare, all that type of stuff there. So eventually what happens is that this bargaining probably ends up getting visceral. And then from bargaining, after these people lose in 2028, it becomes depression. Depression, this right here is not the clinical definition, but as much as you guys may have probably thought to yourself, depression for the most part is rage turned inward. They start doing very, very bad stuff to themselves. That's what they do. Nobody's advocating for this at all. I pray these people get help. But still, at the same time, that's normally what they do. Their self-destructive tendencies begin to go on full display. They're already starting. All you got to do is look at Kyle Kulinski's Twitter page. It's nothing but hate and visceral, stupid takes. Some of which, by the way, I already covered this week. But will they ever accept it? Well, the Democratic Party may accept their defeat at some point in time in the near future, but the online left, they probably won't. It's like a crazy ex that gets rejected over and over and over again. Eventually, they start doing self-destructive things. But that ultimate form of self-destruction, I'll let you guys kind of ponder about that in the comment section. You tell me what you guys think. The fact of the matter is these people have been rejected, and they'll keep getting rejected over and over and over and over and over again. They'll never look at themselves in the mirror. They will always be this way. So yes, the online left will not change. But after a while, the echo chamber gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and people just eventually walk away and act as if to say these people did not exist, which is, by the way, the thing that would trigger the depression stage. But you guys tell me what you think in the comment section. Make sure you guys hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign off in the comments, and I'll see you guys later.